What is up, YouTube? Today I'm here at the beautiful Palm Beach in Sydney, Australia, and I have with me my beautiful Mustang GT. I honestly love my Mustang GT, but one of the things that was not so pleasing was the stock stance, the ugly gap between the wheels and the fender. Now take a look at the picture here. It just feels a little unfinished with the overall design of the newer models. And I do understand it has to serve its functional bits as well, but there are ways to fix this without impacting the overall usability of the suspension. Now, some of the common approaches to fix this is by replacing your stock springs with lowering springs. This is one of the most economical ways. Second option is to get a combination of lowering springs and aftermarket shocks and struts. With a decent pair, I think this is one of the best options to go with if you can extend your budget a little. Now the third option is going with coilovers. Coilovers have a variety to choose from, being economical to expensive, from harsh to a decent ride. The fourth option is the expensive air suspension. Now talking a little more about lowering springs, they can be linear or progressive. Linear springs would have a constant spring rate and they'll give you a more predictive feel, for example, while taking an aggressive corner. While the progressive springs have variable spring rates, that means they go stiffer when you push them, and usually they are softer under lower stress. So they give you an overall better ride quality. Now let's take a closer look at what I've done with my Mustang. What I have here are the Vogtland lowering springs. They are designed and made in Germany, and I've gone with 35mm in the front and 25mm in the back. I think it fits perfectly with the car, and the ugly wheel gap is gone as well. The car sits lower to the ground, has a lower center of gravity. That means you would have a more planted feel, and the overall body roll is reduced as well. The bounciness of the stock suspension is fixed as well, but interestingly, it did not compromise the ride quality. At certain points, I felt that it's even more stable, and it has even reduced the excessive nosedive on braking. Now the urban usability is not compromised. You do not suffer from bumper scraping or the underbelly scraping or normal road use, but you would have to still be careful going with harsh speed bumps or raised platforms for parking. Overall, this is not an aggressive setup. Anything more than this would mean harsher ride quality and bumper scraping, and eventually failure of the stock shocks and struts because of the more pressure exerted on them with the limited movement of the lowering springs. For long-term usage, I still recommend going with a combination of lowering springs and aftermarket shocks and struts. I have limited usage of the car and I'm pretty happy with the current set of lowering springs, and I do know eventually I would have to change the setup like you would do many years down the line, even with stock springs or stock suspension. Now the installation of these lowering springs is real hard work. You would have to almost strip down the front suspension. Taking out those spline spindle to strut bolts is a pain. You need a very good hammer, and it's scary to hammer your car like that. The rear is relatively easier, where you just have to lower the rear subframe and then push the springs down and pull them out and replace them with the lowering springs. It would definitely help if you can get your mate to help you with this, but if you have enough dedication, you could do it on your own like myself. Just keep 4 hours for a couple of days separate to do it peacefully. I recommend watching the installation video on CJ Pony Parts thoroughly. If you feel it's too much for you, then get it done from your local auto experts. The installation will probably cost you more than the springs if you have an expert putting them in for you. A fresh alignment is recommended. The specs on my Mustang were not out, but it always adds the peace of mind. I do have aftermarket wheels on my Mustang that sit flush with the fender. They are bigger than the stock wheels. The front is 9.5, the rear is 10.5. The front is half an inch wider than the stock, and the rear is an inch wider. Now take a look at the 360 view, folks, and let me know how you feel in the comments. I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions in the comment section related to the lowering springs or the Mustang itself. Now, thank you again for watching this. Please do like and subscribe if this has helped you. There is more content coming up on the channel. Please stay safe and stay blessed.